Hey everybody, Scout Crafty here again, Mishmash Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. We got a very interesting show planned for you today. Couple things to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about is when I start my videos on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the first thing I do when I come down here to film a video is I take a small piece of paper towel and saturate it with alcohol. I use 90%, but you can use any isopropyl alcohol. And I wipe off the lenses on the back of I use an iPhone to film. Everything that you see is filmed with my iPhone. However, one thing that, I don't know who designed this, what kind of maniac designed these iPhone. There's 3 camera lenses on the back of the iPhone, and they almost project outside of the case. You know, they're predominantly exposed on the back of the case, and every time you touch your phone or you grab your phone with your hand, you wind up getting smudges on those lenses, whereas my older iPhone 6 had a recessed camera lens. Like any thought out camera lens, they're always recessed. I don't know who thought that putting flat glass or plastic lenses protruding from the back of the iPhone would be a great idea, because I see so many people, they're filming with their iPhone and it's cloudy, and that cloudiness is from smudging on the lens. So just keep that in mind. Every time you're going to film something with your iPhone or whatever, you got to wipe those lenses clear of hand oil or smudge or fog or dirt, whatever's on there. You got to wipe it off. Use a piece of paper towel and some isopropyl rubbing alcohol. And with that, we got a few things to get to today, so let's get started right away. Okay, you know what's funny about this channel? This channel has stuff you won't find in any other channel. Just like if you tuned in here by accident, you're probably wondering what the heck is going on here. Poor Man's Flea Market. I'm walking on the Poor Man's Flea Market the other day, and I find 2 radiators thrown out in the garbage. Beautiful radiators, but obviously I'm not going to pick up a radio when I'm walking. They weigh about 150 pounds at least each. Now, on the radiator, I have a steam heat system in my house that's 100 years old, and how that works is there's an oil burner in the basement, and it creates steam, and it goes up through the pipes into radiators, and the radiators fill with steam, they get hot, and that's what heats your house, okay? And that's different from a hot water system or a hot air system. Steam heat, it's called. Now, on steam radiators, there's something called a vent or an air valve, and that's what this is, a vent. Now, I took these off of the radiators that were there because that's just the way I am. I scavenge everything I can when I'm on my walks, right? Now, sometimes with a steam, there's not much that can go wrong with a radiator, okay? It's just basically a hollow steel or cast iron vessel that holds steam, and what it does is when it gets hot, it radiates heat, and then as it cools down, the water drips back down and goes back to your oil burner. Now, on these vents, there's a hole, an orifice. You see that right there? That little hole? Now, according to where your steam radiator is in your house, that hole is a different size, okay? This is what they don't tell you in Steam Heat 101, you know, as a homeowner. You got to learn this by the hard way usually. So these come in different sizes, usually numbers, and sometimes you can get one that's adjustable, which a lot of people do. They get the adjustable one. This way you buy one valve, and depending on where you're putting it in the house, like me, I have 2 floors, so obviously the radiator that's right above the oil burner in my bedroom is going to have a very small hole, and the one that's all the way upstairs, farthest away at the end of the house, is going to have a larger hole. This is a pretty large hole. And so that's how that works, you know, and it keeps the steam in the radiator, because you don't want to have this vent will vent out any excess steam. You don't want to be venting out a lot of steam on the first floor when it's still got to get up to the second floor. Do you know what I mean? So I was always curious as to what's inside here, you know. They're not expensive, but there's all kinds of different ones. I was always amazed with these as a kid. I used to look at them, and they were all different sizes and shapes, and some of them look kind of futuristic, you know. But this one here is a plain generic one. And you can see here. Anyway, with this, let's cut one open, okay, and see what's inside. Okay, here we go. We have the Cutaway, and here's what's inside of an air vent for a steam radiator. Now, what's very interesting is today we have zones. Today you have intricate zones and stuff. Back then they didn't have zones. It was KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So what they did was they devised this ingenious device that goes on the radiators, and by depending on this orifice here, on how wide this orifice was, it would let steam go past this radiator on the first floor and get up to the second floor before it starts getting this one hot. Because the last thing you want when you turn the heat on is for one area to get real hot, especially downstairs where maybe the thermostat is, and upstairs is still cold because the radiator didn't get hot yet. So that's what this ingenious vent did. How it works is the steam comes in here, and you see it's just a little vessel in here. It's a sealed brass vessel, and it only lifts up maybe what, a 1/16 of an inch, 32nd of an, it's a very little raise. But that little pin, that little shaft has a hole here, and it plugs that hole. As steam enters the radiator, the air will come through this little valve and pass through this hole until the steam pressure is enough that it raises up that little vessel and closes off the hole. Ingenious little device, and a lot of times these are the culprit when your steam heat. People that have problems with steam heat, it's because it's not set up properly. That's all it is. It's a kind of a, if you get an old-time plumber that apprenticed with stuff like this, they know, they'll look right. First of all, sometimes these get clogged up. If this gets clogged up, that can be a problem. So in a good steam system, all the radiators should get warm at the same time. This way your floors will be equal. Instead of having the top floor at 73 degrees and the bottom floor at 68, or vice versa, which is usually the problem. The bottom floor gets hot, turns off the thermostat, the top floor is cold. See? Interesting, right? Speaking of interesting, you remember last week we worked on that hairdryer that I found in the garbage, and when I was pulling it apart, I saw this tape on there. Look, I said, well, what kind of cellophane tape is this? Don't you know it? Two good friends of the show, one Blackys-Boy and the other one Jeffk204, knew what this was. So once Blackys-Boys and Jeff told me about what this is, it's a polyimide tape. And this was used on the lunar module, and it's still used, space shuttle, all kinds of aerospace, all kinds of electronics, and it's a high heat tape, nothing like cellophane. And I remember when I was in Scouts, we used to get Christmas gifts every year. And I remember early on in Scouts, I received an emergency blanket back in the day. Remember, they came in a small packet, and it was real thin, like a Mylar, but it was this color. It was that cool copperish color. Well, they used this but this is high temperature. And you can see here, the original one was made by DuPont, and it was called Kapton, Kapton. This is a knockoff. Kapton's expensive, like anything that's to the aerospace industry. I'm sure it's a whole different quality, whole different, heat ratings. But this one is a kind of the Chinese knockoff, which they use, which is, I'm sure, in that hairdryer. And you can see here it says high temperature tape, and it says nice. I love when they translate and it comes out different. So it says nice up to 280 or 536. Okay, so that 280 is Celsius, 536 is Fahrenheit. So let's open this up, test it out, and see what can we, as shop people, use this tape for. This tape varies in prices, and like I said, if you get the real stuff made by 3M or DuPont, it's going to be a lot more expensive. But I'm trying this out to see what it's going to do here. Now, what's so funny is you see this little cardboard or whatever they have now. A lot of times that's where the tape ends, right? So that you can grip it easy. But I always find it funny when you see this here, but yet the tape doesn't end for another 1.5 inches past there, so you're sitting here doing this, but meanwhile the tape ended up there. So let's peel a piece of this back, take a look at it, see what kind of properties it has. There it goes. You see, it's like a yellowish tape, it has almost the consistency of a cellophane tape, but we're going to try it out and see how it holds up against electrical tape and cellophane tape. Okay, here's our test subject here. Have my nice York vise on here. And on the right side, typical cellophane tape. In the middle, electrical tape. And we have the Chinese knockoff high heat tape on the left. I wouldn't suggest doing this with your good soldering iron, but I will clean the tip afterwards. First, we're going to try the cellophane tape, see how that holds up. Okay, you can see it melts right through the cellophane tape like nothing. Let's try the electrical tape. Oh, same thing. Melts right through it like nothing, right? Now, let's try the Chinese Kapton tape. Look at that. That's pretty amazing, right? Nothing. That is not doing anything to that tape. How cool. It does have a kind of a smell that I'm sure is not good to breathe in. I'm sure of it, because you ever have one of those smells? But look at that. That is not going through. See that? Okay, so what a test that was, huh? Now, this tape, if you put it in your bag of tricks, I'm sure it will have some uses around the shop or whatever, but very impressive results to me. It still retains its stickiness all the way through, even the part that we added the heat to. You see, that's the same stickiness. So it has like a silicone adhesive on the back. So I don't know. What do you think? Special thanks to Blackys-Boy and Jeffk for letting me know about this, and this is just amazing stuff. So there we go, Kapton. Pretty cool, huh? Next up, I have to replace the light fixture in my pantry. Remember pantries? Old houses had pantries. What's interesting about a pantry is where not only your ice box was kept, but also where you kept certain foods and things like that. It was a small room that was had a door of its own and usually a window. And the reason for that is because you could close that door, that little closet-like room, open up the window in the wintertime and keep your food not only cool and from spoiling, but also to help the ice box along, because remember, the ice box was filled with ice, you know, and it wasn't electric. So you want to keep that room nice and cool when the rest of the room was warm, the rest of the house. Another cool thing they used to have years ago, and I don't know if ever you heard about this, they used to have window boxes that were little refrigerators. So in the wintertime, you would put this box into the window, just like you would put an air conditioner in the window, and you could keep your cold items in that box. Why pay for ice during the winter when it's 30 degrees outside? And this box had just enough insulation. You could control it by just letting a little bit of inside air out so it doesn't freeze on you if you want to keep your milk and your eggs and things like that in there. Anybody remember those? Did anybody ever have one of those? Because I know we get a lot of old-timey viewers out there. Speaking of which, look at this beautiful fixture I picked up on eBay. And I wanted to, isn't that nice? I like it. I love old-timey fixtures, as you know. Now, I got to clean this up, obviously, so I want to do it on the air here so I could show you. This isn't super old, or else it would have had a porcelain inside, but this is probably from the 50s, 60s, but the globe is nice. It's hard to find these type globes. It's partly frosted, and it's not, and I'll show you what it looks like lit up. So usually what to do to replace the bulb or the globe, which hopefully you won't drop the globe and have to replace it, is you unscrew these, and it's always funny when you're up there on a chair or a ladder and you're taking this off, you're always, because they do come out. It's not like where they have a stop at the end and they'll stop. They do, so you're always kind of, how far can I take it out before this thing falls out? And you're kind of screwing it and feeling it, and then all of a sudden the globe will come out. Underwriter's Laboratory, you can see, Underwriter's Laboratory made a lot of these type lamps, and we'll clean this up. Remember, there's a frosting on here. It's on the outside. The inside is smooth. The outside's got that frosting, so you don't want to scrub this because you could wear through it, but we got to do a nice cleaning on it. And also here too, Now, this is usually it's a steel base. It looks like brass, but it's steel. And if you have any doubts, you can always take your trusty magnet and see if it sticks. But this is steel. So this is a colorized. They used to have like a paint on here. So here's what you got to be careful of. And a lot of people, including myself, have messed these up by taking, you know, something on here, thinking you're going to go down to brass, and what you wind up doing is you take it right down to the steel, and then what are you going to do? You're SOL. So you either have to take it, make it all steel, or live with that burnish that you made. So you have to use, to clean this, and you can see it's kind of dull and whatever, but to clean this you have to use almost like a polish and treat it like a paint that it is on there. Get rid of the oxidation, but the first thing you're going to do is wipe it with a damp rag, get whatever dirt you can get off first before you hit it with the polish. Okay, we wiped this down with a damp rag. You can see already it took off a lot of the grime. Cleaned up, we wire brushed the little nuts. These are 832 size thread. Remember that, because a lot of times you'll lose these when trying to change a porch light, because they drop out of your hand, they disappear. And when I put them back together, I'll put a lubber plate on the threads, because they tend to always get stuck in there. Next up, as far as polish goes, this you have to treat it as if it's a clear coat. Now, even my polishing compound number 7 would be too abrasive for this. So I'm going to use Plastex. It's a very fine, about the finest polish that you'll get. And even though it's made for plastic, it works really good, because all polish is just an abrasive in a medium that will carry it. So we'll just wipe this on lightly, do a little test spot here, and then we'll buff it off with a piece of dry paper towel and see how that looks. Okay, we did this little area here. It looks good. We didn't do back here, but we did this area here. It's taking off the oxidation without going into the clear coat, whatever this is sprayed with. Let's do the rest of it. Okay, here we go. We finished, we polished it out, then we waxed it with a little Colonite insulator wax, because again, that's very gentle. And this thing is super smooth. And now, if ever you get one of these that are rusted out, and I've had that many times, these do rust out. The best thing to do is to wire brush it, and then you could, if you want this color again, you use a Duplicolor metal cast yellow, and that'll come out just like this. Very easy to do. But now let's do the globe and put it back together. I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, there were some dirt marks impregnated in this covering that just wasn't coming out with regular mild soap and water. So I did have to resort back to the Plastex, and that took them right out. So now it's beautiful, and let's put it all back together. Okay, I just temporarily hooked up a power cord. Let's plug it in. There we go. Isn't that beautiful? I'll show you what it looks like with the lights out. But this is a low wattage bulb. It's only less than 1 watt. 0.8 of a watt this uses, but it's just a decorative light right for now. And what do you think of that? And there we go. That's what it looks like with a 1 watt bulb. It's an attractive globe, isn't it? Normally, it will look like this when it's hanging from the ceiling, you could see. So you'll have kind of an angle like this when you're looking at it. Okay, so in closing, I must say I had an enjoyable time today down the shop, fiddling around. And I'm so glad you can join me. But I want to tell you a quick story in closing. I was down here working, and I heard some squeaking. And I was like, uh-oh, I hope that's not my oil burner. You know, when it gets hot, but when it's running for a while, I said, I hope it's not squeaking. But then I listened, the oil burner was off. So what's that squeaking? It was Lucky. Our little mascot, Lucky the Mouse, who I found on Christmas Day in the snow that my cat was knocking around. But I got to tell you, he went through a little bit of a seclusion phase where he wouldn't come out of his little, I got a little half a log in there for him to stay in, and he was just in there, and he wasn't. And then all of a sudden today, for the first time, he said, I'm done being depressed, and he was on his wheel having the time of his life. He's looking great. So I'll tell you about his diet next time. Hope you have a great start of your week. We will see you again on Wednesday. Take care now. Bye-bye.